Welcome to the Generous Business Owner Podcast, where business owners gain inspiration and encouragement to live a legacy, not just leave one. And now your hosts, Jeff Thomas, Alan Barnhart, and Jeff Rutt.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's Generous Business Owner Podcast. My name is Jeff Thomas. We've got a very special guest with us today, Tom McGehee, who's been on the podcast before, so go back and listen to that to get his whole story. But Tom and I are friends, and we were having a conversation a couple of weeks ago about this idea of identity, and I just had to have this conversation on the recording for the podcast because I think it's so important. Just for a little background, Tom is the former co-CEO of Halftime, spent a lot of time in the military and the Marines, commanding special ops units, was a corporate consultant and so forth. Now he's an independent coach. And I was just asking, what are you working on? And he was just talking about this idea of identity. And I just think for, man, all of us running businesses, we tend to think about our, we know to say if we're believers, our identities in Christ, but maybe we don't totally behave that way, and we maybe come up with a calling, but it's still a doing thing. So, Tom, let me stop talking. Let me bring you into this thing. First of all, thanks for being on the podcast today.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure. Love talking to you, and glad to be here.
This is going to be super fun. So, why don't you just kind of this is such an interesting topic, and as soon as you started bringing it up, I thought, man, this is a weak spot for me. So I thought we'd just kind of have this conversation live, like we were having it the other day. And what kind of brought you to this? I mean, you've been involved in Halftime, but now you're thinking about this calling issue. What's been kind of happening in your spirit or mind around this topic?
Yeah, thank you. Well, a couple of things. I left Halftime, kind of became what I'm calling a free agent because I don't want to say I'm retired.
Yeah.
At the end of last year, and as we were in the fall of last year, I was thinking a lot about what's next and what it meant. All the clients I got to work with at Halftime, all the different people I've seen, successful business people, Christians trying to figure out this life and everything. A friend of mine he is a financial planner, and he works with a number of very wealthy individuals. And he was telling me a story of a guy he worked for quite a while. This guy has married 3 kids. He's managing something like $28 or $30 million for him, seems to have everything. And last year, toward the end of the year, he committed suicide.
Yeah.
And it's like, so what I was really thinking about is in John 10:10, it says Jesus, the last part of that says that he has come that we may have life and have it abundantly. And if you looked at a guy like that from the outside, you would say, my gosh, he's got the most abundant life going, but yet he didn't. And so the abundance piece, and I'll back into the identity discussion.
Yeah. I
really started thinking about, at Halftime, we used to have the tagline of, it used to be success to significance. And I started thinking, I know an awful lot of successful people, business people. I know a lot of significant people. I know less that would describe their life as truly abundant. And so I was really thinking about that. And I'd love to unpack the whole idea of abundance because it's a big deal. But the short version, if somebody asked me to define it, I would say that living an abundant life is doing what you know God is calling you to do in this current season of life. And here's where we get to identity. Your calling, therefore, in this current season, really should come out of your being. Who you are, how you're gifted, how you're wired, what the experiences God's put you through, all of those things. And your being needs to be grounded in your identity.
Yeah.
Because when you go back to John 10:10, the last half says, Jesus came that you may have life and have it more abundantly. The first half of that says the devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy. Right? And so not only do you have to work to figure out what an abundant life means for you, but you literally have to realize there's an enemy who doesn't want you to have it. And ground zero for that battle is in your identity. Because if I can get you off on who you are, who you think you are, then the trajectory will always be off from who God wants you to be. So you end up the man who is man or woman who's very, very successful in their business, but they keep doing it all to try to win their dad's approval,
Yeah.
or something like that, right? They're off of the identity piece. So even though this thing seems to be going great, the full abundance they should be living, they don't have it.
It's the wrong dad.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right.
I mean,
So you
you're
start thinking
close.
about it's
But
close.
I had a great friend of
Yeah,
mine told me that the other day. I was like, he just keeps stacking it up financially, and I was like, what's going on, man? Like, why is this happening? He's like, man, I'm still trying to prove it to my dad, and he's
yeah,
like
yeah,
65 years old, and so that really, I'll never forget that conversation where I appreciated his honesty
yeah,
and
yeah,
and frankly, sort of self-revelation
yeah,
about it. But I was like, and I think he knew it too. He's like,
yeah.
I know it ain't healthy.
Well,
Uh,
and I mean, there's so many things that in order to have an abundant life, Jesus says, "I came that you may have an abundant life or have life abundantly." It's not a promise, nothing you will, but you can.
yeah.
Therefore, it takes effort. Therefore, it's going to take some intentionality, right? And if your calling comes from your being and your being from your identity, one of the things that makes it so difficult is the world looks at it completely opposite, right? The world says your identity comes from what you do, and you need to go be that, act that way, and then your idea, and so it's completely backwards. So if you start trying to build an idea of living an abundant life from the world's perspective,
Mm.
it's all backwards, and you're never going to get it right. And so I have the pleasure now of starting to talk to a few guys as I'm writing and thinking about this and having conversations with guys like yourself that they begin to see this in this direction they can go about knowing really who they are, knowing how they are wired and how they are created, what their being is. And then from the being, if you have that figured out, what God's calling you to do is a lot easier to figure out, you
All right,
know?
so let's maybe we can start with what the foundation should be,
Yeah.
right? If you're
Right.
saying, and I think you're right, most of us, I'm just thinking about how we're trained as
Yeah.
kids. It's like, hey, you gotta, get good grades so that you can get into a good school, so you can get a
Yep.
good job, essentially, and so you have a good, and so it's all sort of driven by this sort of American dream
Yeah.
success, kind of then what are you doing?
Yeah.
And I don't, okay, you go, some of us were raised in church, some of us weren't, but maybe you figure out this faith thing and you're like, oh, okay, I put my faith in that. But anyway, but now it's Monday and I'm off doing the thing. And I kind of caught myself thinking about the calling that halftime helped me define, and I love to quote that. And then when we were having a conversation, I started realizing, wait, that's just more doing,
Yeah.
even though that's helpful.
It is.
What are the activities where I feel productive? That's still not my being. So how do we re-engineer this?
Yeah, so let's start with that last part. One of the reasons I kind of define an abundant life is doing what God is calling you to do in this season. So there are two
Mm-hmm.
two parts of that are really important. One's doing, one's in this season.
Yeah,
There is a doing aspect. I mean, we are wired to create, to be about things, to
it's
do things,
true.
right? So an abundant life doesn't come when we can sit back and do nothing. If I
Right.
was just in a monastery, all by myself, I'd have an abundant life. No, that's not true. You need to be about what you're about. The other thing is to know what is right for this season. I know a number of guys who what they are called to do right now is to lead their companies as well as they can,
Yep.
to grow them, to do things. They're in that stage of life. They are shepherding. They're stewarding what God's given them. They're shepherding a number of people. They're calling on that. I also know two men who I respect highly. One just finished, and one is in the middle of about a 2-year time span of just walking their wives into eternity.
Yeah.
Wives are sick, they're dying, and that is what he's called to in this season.
Yeah.
It's not going to last forever. It's not pleasant. It's not what anybody wanted.
It's
Not what
not
they wanted.
using probably that many of his business skills,
That's right. That's
whatever,
right.
you know what I mean? I mean,
but
But
yet
it's,
you know this is what I'm called to at this
yeah,
point, and
such a
therefore
great example.
he can feel like it's an abundant life, and by God's grace, both of them, especially the first one, smart, successful businessman has his business running a lot without him anyway, and is able to just keep doing it and stuff, So you I think one of the things halftime we used to talk a lot. Halftime was mainly focused for people who've been really successful and now they're in transition. And we did talk about it a lot, like you were this, now go do that. You were this, now what?
Right.
And it really is a who are you now and how long does God want you to stay where you are?
Yeah.
And if you can be at peace with that, whether you're uh, getting the results you want or not, whether it's happening as fast as you want or not, it's like, okay, Lord, I know you're in control. I'm going to do my part. I'm going to do my best. I'm also, so the key to calling, to figuring that out, to the beginning to live an abundant life is really what he tells us in John chapter 15, which is all about abiding with
Yeah.
Christ. It is that daily walking with him that says, do I keep doing this? Do I take that call from the new headhunter? Do I keep, is this the time to sell the company? Is this the time to invest in new technology? All those business questions. There is no reason to separate them from our walk with Christ and say, Lord, I need to stay close to you and let you speak to me in words and circumstances and other people and experiences and all those ways he will to keep you close to him, that the closer you are to him, the more abundant your life becomes. That's the net of it. And again, all of that based on who you are uniquely, your being, and then what your identity is. And you asked a question, I think, to begin with, kind of the ground states. Most men especially, but I think a lot of people, if you ask the question, when God sees you, what does he think?
Ooh, that's such a great
Most
question.
say, yeah, most say some level of disappointment,
Wow.
some level of not
Wow.
good enough, right? When it's not true. I was looking at this here, Ephesians 1:4. Let me read it. I haven't had it in front of me here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Ephesians 1:4, just as he chose us in him before the foundation of the world, that we should be holy and without blame before him in love. That's not somebody who's disappointed in us. That's not somebody who looks at us and says, I wish I'd given you a little bit more skills, or I wish you'd done a little better with the skills I gave you, or I wish you. That's somebody who just looks at you and says, as he did to his own son before he went off and did anything, when baptized with Jesus, God spoke from heaven and said, this is my son in whom I'm well pleased. Now, if you begin with that as your identity, all this other stuff is doable. If you begin with some other thing that's work based or fear based or whatever it is, it's going to be a hard time to get to the life that Jesus wants you to have, that we all want to have, candidly.
What a great question to start with. Um, when God sees you, what'd you say? What does he
Yeah. What
see
does
or
he
what does
think?
he
What does he
think?
think
What
when
does he
God looks
think?
at you? What does he think of you?
This is
And
such a great question because it gets to the root of it. And I don't know that I don't know that anyone's asked me that question before. Like, I mean, it's
yeah, yeah,
um and I just think I'm just after our last conversation, I'm feeling the same way now. It's like uh gotta start with that
yeah.
because okay, you get into the calling, but like, why are we doing these
That's
things?
right. That's right.
It's kind of the why behind it. Okay, yeah, you're wired to, in different seasons, you can be a sage and, we got all these different categories. That's all good stuff. Like,
Yeah.
what are heck, even your spiritual gifts, there's like spiritual
Exactly.
gift inventories, there's sort of personality inventories. There's all these things, and you sort of develop this calling, which is really cool. But if you don't do the hard work about like why, it's the why of doing these things, isn't
It,
it? Is that
it is. I was talking to a guy yesterday, and he put it really, really well. He said, when you understand that, you are able to work from your worth, not for your worth,
mm. So
right?
unpack that a little bit. From
Yeah,
your work?
from your worth. I know I am worth something. I know I
Oh,
am
worth,
valuable. I
not
know
work. Worth.
yeah, worth.
TH. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm working from my worth, not working for my worth. I'm not trying to
Got
prove
it.
myself, earn something, do something. I'm working because I am who God created me to be. And it reframes everything if you will just believe it, right? Because all of us, to your point, the way we're raised, especially as men, but anybody, if you had a dad who expected more, or even a mom that was like, yeah, you made four A's, but you made a B here. What's up with that? Kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And we all have that. And it can lead into a scarcity mentality that you're always worried I'm going to lose this, or I'm not going to have enough, or I'm not going to achieve enough, or whatever, rather than an abundance mentality that says, I'm going to do the best I can, and I know God's literally at the end of all things, God has it in his hands. I mean, when I first got out of the Marine Corps and I was working on these mega deals at EDS, $100 million outsourcing deals. And I watched a guy work on a deal for almost a year, because most of them, it was like a deal a year you did.
Right.
And this guy got right down to sign. They were going to sign the deal the next week, and the CEO died.
Oh my
And
God.
the board put a whole hold on everything. The whole deal went right out the window.
Hmm.
And it dawned on me early in business that I work as hard as I can, but God controls the timing. I mean, we've all had those where you walk into the deal, and I mean, you're sitting next to somebody on an airplane, or you walk in and it's just the right time they want to buy something, or it's just, or the door just seems closed, the week before you got there. I mean, and you either see that for what it is and roll with it, or you beat your head against the wall because you think I've got to fix it, and I've got to do it, and I've got to, on and
Yeah,
on.
this outcome thing. I was having lunch with a friend yesterday, Dave Gibbs. I'm going to have him on the
Mm.
podcast soon, and we were talking about this issue. I'm bringing this up with everybody because of you. Okay, you've kind of wrecked me in a good way on this topic, and he's older. He just kind of got out of the for-profit world, working for the church. He's just always been all in and all kind of
Yep.
missional.
Yep.
He is a doer, and I mean
Yeah.
that in a
Yeah.
positive way. Like
Yep.
he gets his
Yep.
hands dirty. I love the guy. And but we were talking about this issue because you and I have been talking about it, so I'm bringing it up. And we were talking about, and he's a entrepreneur, right? Classic generous business owner. He's run like 8 different companies. Some did great, some didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, he chapter 11 with the companies himself, like he up and down and in the oil business, boom and
Yeah.
bust. And but it was really interesting. For whatever reason, the last couple of weeks I've been having these conversations with people around, there's a little bit of prosperity gospel stuff in
Mm.
this thing too. It's like, okay, if I'm called to run a business, let's just say, and I'm following Jesus, and I'm tithing, let's say, okay.
Yep.
I mean, shouldn't it go well for me?
Yeah.
I mean, shouldn't it? And what happens when it doesn't? And my friend Dave, he's going to be on. He'll tell the stories.
Yeah.
He's like, it doesn't always go well. And
Well,
he treats people great. And I'm not picking on him. I mean,
yeah.
he'll tell
Yeah.
it. But I think we all relate to this. Like, you can work as hard as you want, but if the commodity price that you don't control, or like you're like your guy, the CEO
Yeah.
dies on the other side of the table, like,
Yep.
or frankly, you're living in a country, I mean, where the rule of law doesn't go your way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know, I do.
Just
Well,
because,
and one of the things, I mean, I gave you sort of a very short definition of a very complex topic around
yeah,
an abundant life, of this idea of doing what God's calling you to do in this season of life. But really, to think about what it means for an abundant life, I think is unique to each individual as the individual is. Right? You have to sit down and figure out what would an abundant life look like to me. And start when you're first in business, or if you're younger, you at least get an idea for that, so that you can establish a direction and an intentionality, because in your 20s or whatever, most of your world is reactive. I got this job offer, I got this thing. I don't have a lot of leverage to negotiate. I'm moving. It's all reactive, and you can get pulled off a track pretty easily. But and then when you get in the middle of your life, you start to see everything you're going to accomplish, and you ask yourself a couple of questions. One is am I going to accomplish what I think I am? It looks like I'm headed that way. Am I going to have the success I think I'm going to have? And then secondly, if I have that success, is that the success I really want?
You
And
have
right.
yes,
And so this idea of abundant life, you have to decide if that success is the same as an abundant life or not. And if not, what's the gap and how do you close it?
let's just put the cards on the table. Me and most people, uh, if you ask abundant life, okay, I know that's okay, John 10:10, life, have it abundantly. Okay, there's probably some religious stuff in there. There's probably some stuff about having a good family, but I'd really like to be successful in my career.
Yep.
I would
Yep.
like, okay, let me just say it. I'd like to be financially successful.
Yep.
If I'm financially successful, pick a number as a target. That would be a portion of my abundance, and that ain't in the Bible, man. So it's the scorecard piece that I think a lot of us struggle with. Like, what is your definition of an abundant life?
That's right. That's
And
right.
and and I think, I think of our buddy Lloyd Reeb, who, he's got a spreadsheet for everything. I'm sure you've got some
Yes.
quadrants going,
Yep. Yep.
and it's, what are you doing with your friends? What are you doing with your family? Do you have an annual plan? But I mean, I tend to want, I still want to control outcomes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's more maybe about the process. How do you think about that? Like, how do you help people sort of shift the scorecard a little bit?
Yeah, it is such a balance, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like when my dad was a career Air Force officer, was a general in the Air Force, and when I went into the Marine Corps out of college, I thought I'd be a career Marine.
Mm.
I mean, I loved it. I was all in, 35 years, that's going to be me, maybe make colonel. I had some great commands, I had some great jobs. And then I got passed over for promotion and really felt the Lord saying, "No, I've got something new for you." And
Mm.
so that idea, if an abundant life was tied to being a career Marine, that just went down the tubes,
Great example.
right?
Great
So now I'm
example.
in
An
business,
abundant
right?
life for me is, okay, I may not make general, but at least captain,
At least, yeah,
like,
I'll always have the identity. I'll always be able to, people, all that stuff. And so
so
then you get
true.
out and get in business, and I start to be pulled by, oh, an abundant life means I'm going to have all this stuff.
I got to make partner in the consulting firm,
That's
therefore
right.
I'll make X, therefore I'll have Y.
And
I
I
mean,
and I had, and this is where the abiding comes in because
yeah.
when I was at Ernst and Young Consulting as a partner, they wanted me to take at one point a global account. It was the Johnson and Johnson account. It was in New Jersey, and I live here in Texas, and I'm not moving to New Jersey. And I just saw myself on a plane all the time going out
Yep.
there, and I thought, I'm going to both mess up the account and my own personal life chasing this.
Yep.
And so I made within Ernst and Young, I made a career limiting decision to say, no, I actually feel called to doing this kind of collaborative work that was just starting up.
Yeah.
Right. And the collaborative work turned out to be my life's work for the rest of my life. But I remember about a year after I did that, one of the senior partners ran into me and was like, "Oh, you're still here." Right. Like I was off the radar for the fast movers, but it was okay because I'm doing well in life. I'm doing what I feel called to do in that season, and in the way I feel called to do it. And it was that way overcame any joy or I would have had from just having this big account and trying to be a big dog in the firm. You know?
Oh man, there's just something about, I keep thinking about this. I mean, Chariots of Fire, that famous scene where, the Olympians running and he's like, when I run, I feel God's pleasure. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, I mean, what was he going to get? A crown of salad from the Olympics in 1930 something. I mean, it wasn't going to be any money in
Yep.
it.
Yep.
And I mean, a little bit of fame, whatever, but he was going to chuck it and be a missionary or whatever
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
So uh, I just think about that a lot. It's like finding the thing that God made you to do understanding that those gifts and those abilities came from him, sort of in this place of thankfulness,
Yeah.
and then just doing them, man. If you're
Yeah.
supposed to be a volunteer sixth grade soccer coach, and that's what does it because you love discipling those young kids.
Yeah.
Like, who gives a, like what it pays or doesn't pay or
And, and
whatever.
and and we live, especially here in the U.S., and the many ways you have to make money and things to do.
Yeah,
It's not like you have to be all one thing or another.
that's true.
That you can have this portfolio of saying, you know
Yeah,
what, I'm making enough here, I'm doing well here, and again, you decide how well that is. But I'm not going to get caught up in the trap of competing with other people that are making the same and they're going for even more and more and more, because I want to use some of my time to do this too, or do this other thing. You can, based on your being, who you are, how you're wired. I remember meeting. There have been several guys over my life that I would meet. One of them was running a consulting firm down in Florida, and when I met with him, he broke out a spreadsheet, and I mean, he was magical on how he would move consultants and change bill rates and do stuff. He could just look at this thing and know what to do. I mean, he was gifted for that, and so there's no reason he shouldn't be doing that. The question is, how much do you do that? What else does that allow you to do? And maybe at the time it just allows you to do even more and grow your business even bigger because something's coming pretty quick. But I heard a guy I was speaking with yesterday said the problem is if you keep saying, I'm going to do this for a while and then I'm going to do that once I hit this number,
mm,
once I do that thing. And he said what happens is what you say I'm going to do for a season becomes a lifestyle. Right now, you're the CEO and you're running, and you just can't let it go. And if if you sell one company, you got to start another right away. And again, if God's calling you to that, and He's given you the opportunity, and it plays out on all those things, nothing wrong with that. But to default to that's what I think I should do, and I think that way because I really hadn't even thought about Jesus in a long time, let alone abide from Him, and I really haven't thought about how abundant will my life be if I take this, position. I mean, I know a number of people that have turned down senior positions in firms and companies and have still had really great lives, making all the money they ever needed, but not killing themselves for the sake of, somebody else's idea of success.
yeah. So, kind of to your point, it can work both ways.
Mm,
The whole point, I think you said it at the top, it's like uh, the results are God's.
yeah,
That is so hard for me to learn. I mean,
it
I know to
is.
say it, I know it's true, but I don't know that I behave every day like I believe that. And it's in the irony, I think you just said it's like, okay, so you turn down you did like you turned down the big gig to move. You didn't feel called to do that. I want to be here for there's some other things in my portfolio. I like this portfolio idea.
Yeah,
It's not a binary. It's like what I do for a living is my
that's
thing,
right.
and
That's right.
that's the only thing I can do. Uh, but you turned down that. But that's led to I know that's led to an abundant life for you. You wouldn't be doing this
Yeah.
probably
Yep.
because it led to other things.
Without a
It led
doubt.
to this thing, which is really you're good at. So there is abundance available, and it might lead you to another business that has more financial success. That's not what matters.
No, because we all know, we have not done the work and the deal's fallen on our lap. The bluebird came in,
Exactly.
and then we've worked our butt off only to lose it. I mean,
Exactly.
and so you don't quit. You don't just say, well, if God wants me to have some money, I'm sure the phone will ring. But
Exactly.
you keep saying, is this, Lord, is this what you have for me now? And how do I need to tweak myself to fit this? It's like when people get um, another job offer while you're in the thing. In my opinion, and I don't know if I could find scripture to support it, but I've always felt that God calls you to something, not from something.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So you're saying I don't like working here at all. It's kind of miserable. Well, that's not necessarily a reason to quit. right? I mean, it's like Joseph being in jail and and everything else before he becomes the ruler. God may be doing something to you there. But on the other hand, when God, I feel like God's calling me to get out of the Marine Corps, so I walk away from a career, or I'm at Ernst and Young and I walk away from a promotion because I feel called to this work. Moving to that has always led to just greater things than I could ever imagine. I mean, a life that I've had that I never could have even envisioned.
Right.
Doing things I didn't know you could do for a living. And being able to have my family and all of that while I mean it's just more than I could have ever thought or imagined, as Ephesians says. I mean,
So
it's abundant, truly abundant. If I died today, you were right, and you were writing my epitaph, I'd say start it by saying he lived an abundant life.
right.
And the sad thing, the thing that I want to help with is so many people, especially men I know, who can't say that right now, whatever stage of life they're in.
Yeah.
I mean, it becomes something. You're right, because it's either tied to a wrong idea of it. It would be abundant if I had this or that, or it's just tied to that's a pipe dream that yeah, maybe a monk has that somewhere, but he doesn't have a real life. He's got to take care of kids and family and make mortgage and blah blah blah. So
yeah, the tension between those two things. So it's like, we are called to action, to be creative. God gave us a garden. He gave Adam a garden. He said, tend it. He didn't say, I'll just make it all happen. He's like, here's the hoe. Like,
yeah,
get to work and produce fruit.
Yeah.
But to what end?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It ain't about the fruit. It's about the creativity, the actual work that makes him realize his relationship. Like it's with God. Like they're with God the whole time. That was the whole point.
That's right.
And so now we're in this broken thing trying to redeem that.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do we do that? And we tend to make it about the work because that relationship is broken, and we gotta work on that reconciliation.
Well, and it's easy to ask the question like, how much is enough? And that's kind of a head question is the way we frame it. If you think about, add up all your expenses or what you think to be in the future, or in whatever stage of life, however much money you have, you're going to be able to say, oh, I get a financial planner or whatever it is, and I know how much I have. And it becomes this head question when really it's a heart question.
Yeah.
That really says, would I be happy? Can I be content? Can I feel that I'm having an abundant life if I only have X? And now we're all the way back to that. X is a lot easier to figure out if you're coming from the right identity. If you're out of a broken identity, your X will never be the correct one.
You're so right. I was having that exact, I love that question. We talk about that at our events with business owners. And that's the question we start with. And I love it because nobody asks it. Nobody asks it. How much? No, what are you talking about? Like, I mean, nobody thinks they're rich. It's like whoever's got 2x what they have, that guy's rich. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's 500 grand, it's the guy with a million, million, 2, 2, 4, 4, 8, 8, 16, 16, 32, 32, 30, that goes billions. Okay.
Yep.
And I was talking to a guy, a buddy of mine that retired from private equity, and one of his old partners is still grinding it out. He's like, why?
Yeah.
Like it's so intense. Like, I mean, their lives are difficult outside of work because of the intensity. And for my friend, having an abundant life, he needed out. I mean, he needed to get out to focus on these other areas because he had other things he wanted to do. I like this portfolio thing. And he's asking his buddy, like, why are you still grinding it? And he's like, well, it's my scorecard. Like, I'm trying to run up the score. Like, my net worth is my score. And I was like, again, I was like, I appreciate the honesty.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at least you have it identified.
Yeah.
But we would argue, oops, it's the wrong one.
Well, it's like I have the privilege of knowing a number of former special operators, right?
There we go.
Coming out of there. And these guys, I mean, when you're in the military and you're running on that adrenaline and you're running on that identity and you're running all those kind of things, it's really hard to shift gears into things that you
Everybody
don't,
I've heard,
you
like
know?
you getting out of the military, that they want another mission,
Yeah, yeah,
something to do.
something to do. And at one level, if that's the way God's wired you, you're never going to be abundant sitting around the house not having that. But you have
Right.
to ask,
You
what
do.
is
So there's
that
nothing
for me
wrong
now?
with that, but
That's
why?
right. That's right. Why? And what is it you have for me now in this season of my life? What is that for me? What does that mean? And how do I go after that? And what is that? And it's just it's a, it, very few people, especially running in business and the guys we're talking to, they don't even have time to stop and ask themselves these questions.
Exactly.
I mean, that's where a lot of it starts. Like one of the things I have the pleasure right now of working with a guy out of Birmingham named Dwayne Donner. He runs a thing called the Heritage Forum, and he's just launched kind of a ministry called Abide and Lead for CEOs to help them abide with Christ better to lead their companies and their families. And he's an amazing guy. It's a great mission he's developing. And we take the guys in this program, we begin with this idea of identity and how does God see you, and really realizing the
Yeah, I want to
truth of that.
understand this process that you're working on. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But then the next thing we have them do is they write down a daily declaration.
Yeah.
It's like stop and write for yourself. This is truth about me from a good perspective, from a what I know is right, what I know is my best, what I know is how I'm loved, what I know is when I'm secure. And give yourself a grounding that you can read every day before the world tells you you're not good enough, you'll never be enough, you failed at that, you should be ashamed of yourself, blah, blah, blah. And it's a simple little tool, that just helps you say, if I start every day from this truth, I'm going to have a better ability to know when I'm getting off of my azimuth that I should be following, and not, it gives me a plumb line to know I'm moving away from, which will help me at least stay a little on track. And it's just a great place to start with these guys, who are all running businesses, all being successful, all killing it, all trying to figure this out.
Yeah, I think one of my friends from church years ago, we were studying like really just prayer, and something that's helped me in my quiet time is to kind of I want to go right to, hey, I got a laundry list of things I need help with. Okay, that's where I wake up. I have true confessions. But to slow me down is sort of the ACTS method. Many people listening to this maybe have heard of this. Maybe many haven't. But it's adoration, confession, thanksgiving, and supplication. So when you were saying that, so the supplication is the asking for stuff at the end, right? It slows me down. It's like, okay,
That's
you're
right.
God, I'm not. Oh boy, whew, man, I screwed that up yesterday. I gotta, whew, all right. Uh, hey, thanks for the family, the business. Okay. And then get into okay, what do we got today? Sort of pray the calendar. But I think adding that to the
Yeah.
Thanksgiving, hey, thank you that I am secure, that the performance isn't on me, that you love me no matter what. Like you know what I mean? Like I like inserting something like that and the exercise of writing those things. Like get into the word and see what it
That's
says,
right. That's right.
right?
This idea. I mean, in as I'm thinking about the way you move intentionally toward figuring out what an abundant life means for you is
Yeah.
through the abiding in Christ and trying to walk with Him closely. The ability to sit in the morning and not just do even a Bible reading, but then after you read it, sit there silently for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, whatever you can do that says, Lord, I'm just going to sit here and listen. I'm not going to scroll. I'm not going to,
Yeah.
do these things. I want to listen to you. That moves you in that direction. The other side of that, and this is something we just don't talk a whole lot about, but know a guy who says we are amphibians. We were created to live in two worlds at once, the physical and the spiritual.
Hmm.
And in that Bible verse that talks, John 10:10, that talks about having an abundant life, like I said, the first part of it says there's an enemy who doesn't want you to have it. There's an enemy who literally hates you, and is going to do everything he can to throw up every roadblock to keep you from knowing your identity, to keep you from figuring out who you are in your being, and certainly to keep you from doing what God created you to do, because that's a real slap in his face. Many people I know, we don't consider the spiritual battle we are in, right? It comes with, on one end you can say, Lord, I know the results are yours, as in your hands. On the other end, you got to go, wait a minute, if these results are because I'm doing what he's told me to do, there's actually somebody who's not going to want me to have them. And when am I
I
being
think it sort of
attacked?
explain. I think you bring up a good point. I've been more focused on that the last several years, and I don't think I was early in my
Yeah,
life.
I wasn't.
Uh, yeah, okay, say man, some guy with a pitchfork, like yeah, okay, devil made me do it. Like it's actually the more mature I've gotten, the more I've understood the Bible. Actually, the clearer that gets. Actually,
Yeah,
it gets clear. It's like,
yeah, it does. It does.
okay, which realm are you operating in?
Yeah, yeah,
Just kind of being aware of that realm.
yeah.
And as one of my old friends used to say, when you're in Satan's realm, you get whacked. Just get out of there as fast
Yeah,
as you can,
yeah,
but kind of
yeah,
be aware of
yeah.
there are those competing forces. So don't be surprised
That's right.
when
That's right.
when you find
And you have
yourself
to recognize it for what it is.
exactly.
One of my favorite. There's a book called Left of Bang, and it was written by a couple of guys that came out of the Marine Corps Hunter. I think it's the Hunter Tractor School that they
Mhm.
have, and they make the point right of bang. Bang is when the event happens, when the crisis hit, when the bomb
Bang like a
bang, like
loud
a bang.
noise.
Yeah,
Got it.
bang is when the thing hits, and everybody trains a lot of times for what happens right of that. Well, how do you react to it? What do you do?
Okay.
Left of bang is that whole situational awareness that lets you see things to prevent it from ever happening in the first place. And so I think a lot of us, we try to react when we get hit with some
Mm,
scheme of the devil. We messed up because of some temptation or something happened, and it's sometimes it's pretty darn obvious.
yeah.
Like having a car wreck on your way to your biggest deal or something. That's a pretty obvious kind of thing.
Right.
But the question is, can you get out in front of that? Can you get left of that bang so you see this coming and go, you know what? I'm gonna take refuge in Christ and let him fight for me, just like I'm gonna abide in him to tell me what to go do. And it's just for doers, for achievers, the idea of, quote, putting on the armor and then just standing there or asking Jesus to step in for you. It's like, no, I'll just man up and handle it myself. That's the way I do business. That's the way
Yeah.
it's different for us, but it's the same soul that says, I'm surrendered in you. I've learned to be content in little and in much and in those kind of things.
Exactly.
And so I'm going to work from who I am. And, if you choose to bless me because of my efforts, then I'm going to, praise you for it and just live the life that, I'm here. We're created for a purpose, right? Our God doesn't do anything unintentionally. I mean, literally, you and I, anybody listening to this, you were created specifically for this time and in this way, and with the gifts and skills you've been given, and with the experiences you've been given to literally do something on the planet that no one in history or the future can do. That's why you're here. Now, it may be something little, it may be something big, it may be just, as Ecclesiastes talks about, just really what you feel is just living a good life, working hard, coming home, having a glass of wine, being with the family, kind of thing. And yet there is a purpose for that
Yeah.
that is ordained for us to walk in. And I think, if you could just even begin to get a sense of that, then what you're doing takes on a whole another realm. And how successful you are not in it takes on a whole other acceptability level
I
of
mean,
acceptability.
I wrote down contentment when you said it
Mm,
because I just think this is such a key word, right?
yeah.
Contentment is great gain to have. I mean, that's something I struggle with, and I think most people struggle with
And we live
is
in a world that wants you to struggle with it.
exactly
You
the
know,
enemy
you'll
wants you to
be
struggle
content if
with
you have
it.
the new whatever,
Yeah, it's the understanding what the scorecard is, uh, truly, and it's not the outcomes. It's really the behaviors.
Yeah, it
Frankly,
is.
it's
It
the
is.
behaviors. That's our only real job is the behaviors,
Yeah.
doing the behaviors in the realm at the time that we're supposed to do, and letting God have the uh, control the fruit. And we're doing out of that safe,
Yeah.
loving relationship out of a thanksgiving for the generosity He's given us. It's really this sort of, it's just keep honing the worldview, man.
So I was in a Bible study Monday night, and this was something I never thought about before. We were talking about in Luke, where the parable of the soils,
Yeah.
right? And there are four soils. There's the first one where it says the word of God is planted on all these soils. It's just thrown everywhere. The first one, Satan comes and steals it away. It doesn't do any good. The second one takes root, but then temptations take it away. The third one says it gets a little stronger, but the cares of the world and the
Yep.
enticements and all that.
Choke it out.
Yeah, and then choke it out. That's right. And then the last one bears much fruit. And I had always heard that, and it is, but I always heard it as what do you call it? Not an analogy. What was the
allegory or whatever?
Parable. I always heard it as a parable.
Yeah.
Of people's hearts when you give them the gospel, whether they receive it.
Yeah.
But the guy who was teaching said, so as you sit here today, what type of soil are you?
Mm.
And I realized if it's about the word of God working in our life daily, well, if you don't know Christ and you're not, then this whole idea of anything goes out the window anyway. You're just a victim to whatever the world says you ought to be in the first regard. But the other three, there are certainly times in my life when I'll move from one to the other. I'm back into being choked out by the world thing, or I'm back being tempted by something, or I know I'm walking in that last good soil where the soil God is planting the word in my heart. I'm abiding with Him, and therefore I feel like I'm producing fruit. But I'd never seen that as a kind of a barometer for myself to ask somebody. So, what kind of soil are you today? And I just thought it was kind of a neat.
Yeah.
Neat idea,
we're subject. It's not. I understand what you're saying. It's like it's not just whether you accept Christ once and for all, or why you didn't, but okay, on an ongoing basis, even as believers, like, hey, we can be tempted, and hey, whoa, am I letting the cares choke me out?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, hold on. Whoop,
Yeah.
let me adjust. Kind of back to the realm thing. What realm are you in? I like that barometer.
It really, and then even if you're walking in as good soil, 30, 60, 100 fold, it's like, okay, what do I think I'm delivering? What's 100-fold soil? What does 100-fold fruit look like?
Yeah.
What does it look like in my own soil? I know soul. I know what it part of what it looks like to me is, I go to bed thinking this was a great day, and I wake up thinking this is going to be a great day.
Exactly.
I'm not worried about it. I'm not super stressed. I'm not full of shame for something I did or guilt that I didn't do something. It's like, Lord, I did the best I can. I tried to keep myself in that soil, that fourth soil. It was a pretty good day. I'm looking forward to what we're going to do together tomorrow.
Yeah, and I think it's very easy because those are numbers for a numbers addict like me to go, okay, well, that means I gotta take one and make it 100, and it's more subtle than that for sure. It's just
it
more of
is.
an effectiveness. Like, are you in the doing the thing well? Like, are you
Yeah.
correlating with the gifts?
And the well part of it, like I said, the people that are probably listening to this podcast have great capability.
Yeah.
They're probably doing some amazing things in their businesses and their work and where they are. And that's probably just what they should be doing at this stage of life, wherever they are. It's about refining and loosening your grip for a better, abundant life. It's not about stopping or that what you're doing, you need to sell your business or you shouldn't be doing this or whatever it is. It's like, God's wired you a certain way. I think it was Augustine that said, God's greatest story is a man fully alive.
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about. When you're fully alive, you feel like your life is abundant, right? It's like, man, I love,
Exactly. Oh man, this has been so good. We could go forever, but Tom, maybe we'll wrap with kind of the same thing we usually do on a podcast with just one practical tip. Okay, so what's somebody wants to work on this tomorrow morning? What should they do? What's one thing they could start doing?
If they want to start with the identity thing, it's sit down, take a look at your Bible or Google or wherever you want, and start to look at how God really describes somebody who has accepted Jesus. Jesus is in you. Jesus, that He loves you, that those things. And start to look at the scriptures on what it means to be saved, what it means to know Him, and see those as truth about yourself. That's one place if you never sat down and just started writing down all the scriptures that say how loved and special and Psalm 119, how you're uniquely created and all those kind of things. Start by just writing those down. That might be a place to start. And then the other place is probably to say, try to give yourself, even if it's a little bit every day, some time to stop and not be doing, but just be being, just be listening. Just say, Lord, I'm going to abide with you. I was driving the other day to go meet some guys, and I was listening to a great podcast and everything. And I realized, then I turned off the podcast and I started praying, and I realized in the middle of prayer, Lord, I'm going to stop talking now. Is there anything you want to say to me?
Right.
And just went about 10, 15 minutes of silence, just trying to keep my mind from wandering to all of these things.
Right. You got to practice that.
If you start to write down these truths of who you are that could become a declaration, and you start to sit just a little bit to say, Lord, I really want to hear your voice. Can you teach me what it's like to do that? Can you show me what it is to abide in you? You start there, the rest of this will start to open up for you.
I mean, you start thinking about how much God loves you, and then you think, well, why wouldn't I want to be quietly hanging out, listening to more of that? That's the source of the.
And again, if your identity is, if I hang out,
exactly,
he's beating me up because he doesn't like me.
Right, yeah. You don't want to hang out with a guy beating you up. He's not beating you up.
I don't want to hang with him.
He's trying. He wants you to live that abundant life, so he's got some stuff for you. So just listen to it. Yeah, that's a great way to end it. Well, Tom, as usual, man, it's just been a joy to have this conversation. Thanks for joining us again.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. I love everything you're doing, man.
All right, man. Thank you. And thanks, everybody, for joining us on this week's Generous Business Owner Podcast. Share it with a friend, subscribe on YouTube, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Generous Business Owner Podcast with Jeff Thomas, Alan Barnhart, and Jeff Rutt. Make sure to follow the podcast so you don't miss an episode. You can find the guest contact information in the show notes. Stay tuned for the next episode.